The day that many LSU fans have been asking for, pleading for, praying for has finally come. Defensive coordinator Matt House and 3 other assistants fired. No longer with the LSU football program. A day that many of us thought wouldn't be coming because a week passed after the final game of the season against Texas A&M. Nothing. 2 weeks. Nothing. A whole month. We don't hear a word. But finally, here in January, in the first week of the new year, changes coming to this LSU program that I think could only help this team next year and moving forward. So I want to preface everything I'm about to say by saying, we don't really take pride in people getting fired. These are people's jobs, careers. They got families. They've got a whole life to live. So hopefully they can, find a new place to go, find a new job, and hopefully everything is okay. None of this is personal. This is strictly business, strictly about the football. So let's talk about this decision, why it needed to be made, and why it prevented this LSU football team from perhaps playing in games this past week, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, and playing in the national championship game next week in Houston. So Matt House, you guys know the name. It's been very popular on social media all year. Even non-LSU fans and other fans around the SEC, around college football, should know this name because whenever there's a guy in the hot seat, they're trending, they're circulating on pretty much every social media app. And all season long, the side of the ball that wasn't meeting the standard was the defense. And in the most critical games this season, the defense didn't show up to play. And you can talk about talent, you can talk about the players, you can talk about the X's and O's. But when all is said and done, it comes back to Brian Kelly and it comes back to the defensive coordinator and the respective coaches of the different position groups. The ReliaQuest Bowl felt like the final straw or the final opportunity for Matt House and this defense to show they deserve to be the defensive coordinator, the cornerbacks coach, the whatever coach at LSU. And I started to begin thinking, hey, maybe he is going to give him one more shot next year. And this ReliaQuest Bowl is a great chance for them to give fans optimism. They didn't give us any of that. The ReliaQuest Bowl was a complete defensive disaster. It was terrible. I know it was only 35-31, but what I'm about to tell you will add context to the fact that that was an F performance from this LSU defense. It took a goal line stand, and it took last-second heroics for this team to even win this game, a game in which they were 9.5-point favorites. It should not have even come down to that. When we previewed this ReliaQuest Bowl matchup against Wisconsin, I told you, hey, this offense is no good. They wanted to be an air raid team. They were not an air raid team this year. They were one of the worst passing offenses in the country, one of the worst total offenses, scoring offenses, whatever. They were scoring like 20 points a game, put up 370 yards of total offense. That's as many passing yards as Tanner Mordecai, the Badgers quarterback, put up in this game. He went for 378 passing yards. Season high, his only 300-yard passing game of the season. This offense was lifeless. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass the ball. And in this bowl game, they were missing their star running back who opted out to declare for the NFL draft. And still, up and down the field, Wisconsin goes, scoring touchdowns. Time after time, shredding this defense, the same stuff we saw all year long. Insert opponent. They do it week after week, and it didn't change even against a very lackluster Wisconsin team. Again, it's just another case exhibit in the case that this LSU defense prevented this team from being a championship team, an SEC champion, a national champion, an SEC West champion. Like pretty much anything this team wanted to do this year, the defense prevented them from doing it. And it nearly cost them a win in this game, if not for Garrett Nussmeier and that offense being clutch in the key moments there in the final seconds, final minutes of that game, putting a touchdown in the end zone to vault this team to a 10th victory this season. But look, you guys know the story. Biggest games this year, the defense was garbage. The season opener against Florida State, they gave up 45 points, and maybe the offense wasn't as good that game. They were missing some players. It was the first game of the season, and that was kind of an outlier from what we saw for the majority of the season from that LSU offense. They lose 45-24, give up hundreds of yards of offense. Same thing against Ole Miss, 55-49, the final score there. Again, tons of yards, tons of missed opportunities, and your offense gave you 49 points. You should win a game when that is the case. And then the final loss was, of course, to Alabama, a game in which this team had everything to gain. An opportunity to win the division still, go to the SEC championship, maybe even make the playoff, and they fall flat again and made Jalen Milroe look like a Heisman Trophy winner, and Michigan just made him look like a fool in the Rose Bowl game. That offense was no good, but they looked unstoppable against your defense in the biggest game of the season, I may add. And there are other things as well that go kind of within that umbrella, if you will, of the larger, broad topics like the defense wasn't good, they didn't show up in the big games. What happened to Harold Perkins? I mean, freshman All-American, 5-star, star in college football, was a ghost this year. Like, was he even on the field? This defense failed to find a role for him to use the talent that he has. It got to the point where he's taking handoffs and running in a touchdown as a running back. What are we doing? This guy is an NFL linebacker, and you can't find a spot on the field for him to affect the game, wreak havoc, get pressure, force turnovers? Apparently not. That's unacceptable. Just so much untapped talent and potential with this defense, I feel like. You had a ton of bodies on that defensive line. Your linebackers were stout. I know the secondary wasn't great, and injuries had a hand in that. Just guys not working out from the transfer portal had a hand in that. But there could have been more that was done all season. And this is another broad topic. Tell me, right now, or think to yourself, what was the strength of the defense? Did they force turnovers? No. One of the worst teams in the country at doing that. They forced 14 all year, 103rd in the country out of 130 teams in forced turnovers. So no, that wasn't it. Run defense? Not so much. 85th in the country in run stopping. Was it passing defense? No, we all know that wasn't the case. They were 115th in the country in passing defense. Red zone? Scoring? No. Scoring defense, 78th. What was the strength of the defense? What did you know that this defense would do well coming into a game? Would they stop the run? Would they have good corners? Would they shut down passing games? Would they get after the quarterback and sack it? No. They just were there, and they would just trot out and do the best they could, and that's just not good enough. That is not what the standard is at LSU. You're supposed to compete for championships every year here, and how can you do that when your defense is literally one of the worst in the country? You're bottom third right there with Akron and, some of the worst teams in college football that have no business even being relevant or being talked about. That should not be the position that you were in. But this season, you were in that position. And again, there's outliers. Transfer portal was a bust in some areas. You didn't have the talent. Maybe you haven't recruited super well at some positions over the years, and that kind of caught up to you this year. You had injuries, Mekhi Wingo, Mason Smith back from an injury, didn't seem like himself for most of the year. And the offense, you're scoring up 7 points a minute. You're going down, you're scoring a touchdown, defense back on the field, just kind of like that USC style of football where you're going to score 50 points, but probably give up 40, but still win the game. But that doesn't work at USC either, as we saw this year. And Lincoln Riley just fired his defensive coordinator as well. It's got to work. There's got to be a way for you to play complementary football to have this defense match what your offense can do, even if it's so potent that they're going to score touchdowns. Like, you're not just going to handcuff yourself and be like, you know what? Defense needs a break. We're going to go 3 and out here. You're not going to do that. You're going to put up points when you can. And they had 13 different opportunities to put a game plan together to show, hey, you know what, offense? We can get you a stop or two. We can compliment you. Just didn't see it enough. And especially in the biggest games this year, Ole Miss, Florida State, Alabama, not at all. They just crumbled and really were a non-factor. And the offense had to just put up Herculean numbers and have, monster games just to even be in the game and have a chance to win. That was the case. And then finally, as far as Matt House goes, it doesn't seem like the players really liked him. Like, you go on social media, none of this is confirmed. Nobody's really said anything, but it's just vibes, right? There's videos of Mekhi Wingo and him having a weird confrontation after the game that our sports director, Jacques Doucet, captured. There's guys on Instagram after this announcement was made, like, doing things that would make you seem like, hey, they're happy that he's gone. You know what I'm saying? So if you're at the point where people don't even like you, you're not a player's coach, you're not going to be around, especially if you're not getting it done on the field. Like Sam Pittman at Arkansas, they didn't have a great year over there, but he's a people person, and he's a player's coach. So he has good relationships with the people there. He's going to get another shot. If you're bad at your job, you put up one of the worst defensive seasons in the history of this program, and the players don't even like you, you can't expect to keep your job. And I don't really know the specifics of that situation, but if you have Instagram and you follow some of these players, you can kind of get the vibe of what's going on there, right? So Matt House is gone. Along with him, corners coach Robert Steeples, safeties coach Kerry Cooks, defensive line coach Jimmy Lindsay. That one I'm not really sure about because he missed most of the season, Coach Lindsay, with health stuff. So I don't know. But those are the guys that are gone, along with Matt House. So now you got to find an offensive coordinator, though you might have the perfect person already in the program to fill that role. Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton, one of those two. Now you got to fill that defensive side of the ball. But this is LSU. They recruit well. They've got talent already here. You can go to the portal and get whoever you want. This is a great job for anybody. The question for next year, that offense is going to be good. We saw what Garrett Nussmeier can do. They've got pieces coming back. Can the defense complement this offense? That is what held this team back from being a championship contender this year, and we'll see if that's the case next year. But I think this was the right move. I think this will help next year. I think it's going to help in the future because, frankly, it couldn't get worse. But let me know what you think about this coaching move. Perhaps people that you want to see come in and fill these open vacancies and the defensive coordinator vacancy. Would love to hear your opinions on all of that. But Matt House and 3 other assistants gone from the program after a very disappointing season.